The night she finally opened the envelope, the kitchen light hummed like a distant reminder. Papers fanned across the table, numbers that felt heavier than their ink. She sat midway between a lifetime of careful choices and the small, stubborn belief that money was always slipping through her fingers. Outside, the street was quiet. Inside, memories crowded the room: a father's sigh when the rent was late, a neighbor who whispered that wealth wasn't for people like them, a childhood lesson wrapped in scarcity. Each memory folded into the present like an unseen instruction. "Why does this always happen to me?" she muttered, voice thin. The question hung in the air, not a blame to the job, the boss, or the economy, but a challenge to something quieter. From the doorway came a soft footstep, an older friend, a guide whose eyes had seen similar struggles. "Because you've been following a script," the guide said, gentle as a hand on the shoulder. "Not the market, not luck. A script you learned long ago." He didn't hand her answers. He asked instead, "What did you learn about money when you were small? Who were you taught to be when it came to wealth?" Those questions felt invasive at first, like someone had opened a window to let in cold air. She remembered spending without thinking when she was anxious, saying yes to things that made her feel included, turning away from promotions that felt like a betrayal of who she had been. Beliefs, she realized, weren't theories, they were instructions shaping her choices before she even knew she'd made them. The guide smiled, not unkindly. "The law of attraction doesn't simply grant wishes," he said. "It mirrors what you emotionally expect. Wishful thinking gets drowned if your heart expects lack." Her chest tightened. This was uncomfortable truth and quiet empowerment. If her expectations had been writing the script, awareness might be the first line of a new draft. If this resonates, give it a quiet like and stay with us. Before we move deeper into how these scripts formed and how to gently rewrite them, ask yourself, what financial belief might be limiting your life today? The morning light finds them at the kitchen table, a thin stack of bills like a small, accusing town. Steam rises from the mug. Their fingers drum the wood the way they've always drummed it, an old nervous habit that showed up in childhood when money meant tension and secrecy. A voice, calm and familiar, sits beside them, the guide. He leans forward, not with answers but with a question that lands heavier than the bills. "When did you first learn money had to be fought for?" They blink, surprised by the intimacy of the question. Memory arrives in fragments: a parent whispering about hard times, a grandparent counting coins at dusk, a teacher saying dreams were for other people. Each memory is a filament, a quiet instruction threading through choices made later in life: declining a promotion because it meant more hours away from home, spending impulsively after a small triumph to soothe the old ache, tensing when a client praised their work because praise felt like a setup for loss. The guide watches without judgment. "Beliefs are more than thoughts," he says. "They're lenses that color everything you notice. They nudge your eyes away from opportunities and toward proof of what you already expect." In the soft hum of the kitchen, phone notifications, the distant radio, the narrator demonstrates: a job opening scrolls by on the screen and goes unread because somewhere, unconsciously, the hero expects rejection. A neighbor offers to partner on a side project and the hero imagines awkwardness, then says no. We see the consequences in tiny, cinematic details: the hand hesitating over a savings transfer, the wallet opening to familiar, small denominations, the instinct to apologize when receiving a compliment about success. Each small act is evidence of a larger script: money is scarce, I don't belong among the wealthy, success makes you lonely. These scripts feel true because emotions have been running the show longer than logic. The law of attraction, the guide explains, doesn't pick favorites, it amplifies the emotion behind the expectation. Fear thickens into missed chances, expectation of loss compresses the horizon of what seems possible. Awareness begins to unfurl like dawn. For the first time, choice slips into their hands. Which of these old stories are you willing to unlearn? The guide asks, and the question hangs like a door left open, inviting and urgent. What financial belief might be quietly steering your life today? If you want to keep going with this journey, subscribe and come with me into the next step, where awareness becomes practice and belief begins to change. She wakes before dawn, coffee cooling beside a stack of bills, the kitchen light throwing long shadows across receipts she swore she'd sort tomorrow. He sits in his car after work, staring at a promotion email and feeling a hollow tightness in his chest, as if accepting it would make him someone else, someone his family might resent. In small, ordinary moments, they act out invisible scripts: rush to spend when comfort arrives, hesitate when opportunity knocks, apologize for wanting more as if desire itself were shameful. The guide watches, not with judgment but with a soft, steady curiosity. "Tell me the story you heard about money as a child," she asks, leaning into the quiet. He remembers a living room where scarcity was spoken like scripture. "Money doesn't grow on trees," a parent whispered, eyes tired. She remembers being taught that generosity means sacrifice, that wealth equals vanity. Those phrases became rules, embedded until they felt as solid as concrete. Scene shifts to a supermarket aisle. A small impulse buy is a brief victory, followed by guilt that exactly mirrors the childhood lines. Later, a dinner table becomes a courtroom where ambitions are argued down by the old inner voice that insists survival matters more than thriving. The guide names the patterns aloud: avoidance, fear of judgment, self-sabotage, and with naming comes a tiny crack in their certainty. A conversation unfolds like this: "What if the problem isn't the job or the market?" the guide suggests. "What if it's the signal your beliefs are sending, invisible instructions that shape every choice?" He laughs, half bitter, half relieved. "So all this time I was following a script I never wrote?" The guide nods. Scripts feel safe. They predict outcomes. But they also close doors you never knew were open. The narration slows. The camera lingers on a hand hovering over a job application submit button, on fingers pausing above a savings transfer. The moment of pause is not failure, it is the birth of awareness. Once the scripts are seen, choice becomes possible. Once choice exists, the path can change. If this landed with you, leave a like and tell me, what belief might be quietly steering your finances today? Stay with me, the next step shows how to gently rewrite that script. The afternoon light slants across the kitchen table where envelopes lie like small judgments: a mortgage statement, a credit card bill, a loyalty card with a balance you never check. You fold the paper the way you've folded worries for years, neatly, so nothing spills. In the doorway, the guide watches without surprise. "What do you tell yourself when you see this?" she asks. You shrug, the old answers rolling out: "It's the economy, jobs aren't stable, I'm not lucky." But the guide leans in, voice steady. "Those are reasons. What about the rules you follow without noticing? The quiet scripts that make you spend, save, hide, or say no?" Outside, a neighbor pulls into a new car and your chest tightens, not from envy but from an old, familiar sentence: "Money is for other people." That sentence has lived in the margins of your days, in choices you made and opportunities you skimmed past. In the supermarket, you buy the sale item you don't need because deals are rare. At work, you downplay your achievements before anyone else can dismiss them. At home, you rehearse the story of scarcity so often it becomes the soundtrack of every decision. The guide walks you through a different map. She points to a moment last month when an extra project could have meant a raise, and you declined because success felt dangerous, as if more money would change who gathers at your table. "Fear often disguises itself as practicality," she says. "You call it realism, but it's a protective script. You remember the tightness in your throat when someone praised you, the instinct to minimize. Each reaction is not coincidence but evidence, expectation shaping experience." She asks you to sit with one image, not of bills, but of a small, specific belief you've held since childhood. You name it aloud with a tremor: "I shouldn't want more." The guide doesn't judge, she simply nods, then frames the truth with the calm of someone who's seen this before: beliefs are instructions. They sort the world for you. The realization lands like a door opening somewhere deep inside: if those instructions can run you, perhaps they can be rewritten. You feel equal parts exposed and relieved. A choice flickers, faint but real. The guide smiles and says there's a simple experiment ahead, something you can try tomorrow that will test this idea. Before she explains, she asks quietly, "What belief will you name right now? If this resonates, leave a comment and follow. We'll practice the first change together in the next step." The guide leans forward, the lamplight soft on the kitchen table where the hero has been spreading out bills like a map of old wounds. Outside, a late spring rain taps the window, steady, familiar. "Listen," the guide says, voice even, "your reactions are not accidents. They're lines of code you learned long ago." The hero rubs a thumb along a coffee ring, eyes narrowing. "I thought it was my job, the economy, everything else," she answers. That's the story you've been handed, the guide replies. But stories can be rewritten. He opens a small notebook and reads one line aloud as if naming a spell: money is hard to keep. The hero flinches as if struck. When you believe that, you spend fast to outrun the anxiety. You avoid conversations about pay raises because confrontation feels like loss. Opportunities that look risky get labeled dangerous before you even try. Across the table, her husband watches. He folds his hands and remembers the months he turned down at training that might have led to promotion, afraid the extra money would change how his sister treated him. The guide sketches a scene, a young version of the hero watching her parents argue about debt, a whispered verdict: "We're never rich," cemented into a child's heart. Cinematic close-ups show the moment the belief settled, a small, unconscious choice repeated until it became the path. Beliefs are not moral, the guide adds. They're efficient. They protect you from imagined harm. But they also hide possible futures. A silence follows, heavy and open. The hero breathes, feeling the first honest curiosity in months. "What do I do?" she asks. The guide smiles like someone who has asked the same question in many rooms. Start by noticing. Name the script that played when you just reached for the credit card. Say it out loud. Watch how your body answers. That's where awareness replaces autopilot. She does it, awkward, trembling: "I will never keep money." The words sit between them, smaller than she expected. The guide nods. Now you have choice. If this lands with you, a small like helps this moment be seen. What financial belief might be quietly steering your life today? Stay with that question. The next step is a gentle, practical experiment that will test a new belief and begin to change the story. He leads you back to the kitchen table where a stack of envelopes waits, the lamp casting a small circle of light over numbers that feel heavier than they should. You watch him watch you, not with judgment but with the calm of someone who has seen this pattern 1,000 times, the quick inhale before opening a bill, the tiny apology you give yourself when you transfer money out of savings just in case. He leans forward and asks quietly, "Who taught you how to value money?" You answer with a name, a house, a phrase from childhood: "We didn't have much, money makes people selfish, it's for other people." Each memory arrives with a color, a sound. The past isn't abstract, it is an echo shaping your present choices. He takes you through small, cinematic moments: shopping with the radio humming in the car, flinching when a friend announces a promotion, hiding receipts at the back of a junk drawer. Then he points to the invisible script running beneath those moments, an instruction manual you never wrote but have been following loyally. Beliefs are not thoughts, he says. They are weather. They change how you move through the world. When you expect scarcity, you see scarcity. When you believe you don't deserve comfort, you decline invitations, you underprice your work, you say no to risks that could be doors. A quiet dialogue unfolds. You confess a fear: success might change relationships, make you a target, make you alone. He nods. That fear is a contract with safety, he replies. And safety here is scarcity. The realization lands like a key turning in a lock. Suddenly choice appears where there was only autopilot. You don't have to be the person who spends to soothe, you can be the one who asks, "What would my life look like if I expected abundance?" The room relaxes. Awareness has already nudged your behavior. Tomorrow you'll notice a job posting you would have scrolled past. Next week you'll sit at the table and hesitate before moving money from savings. Small shifts, rewiring belief by belief. If this scene touched you, a simple like helps others find it, and tell me below, what financial belief might be limiting your life today? If you want to keep walking this path, subscribe to continue. Next, we practice a single, gentle exercise that rewrites one of those old scripts. The kitchen light is soft, the table littered with envelopes and a screen filled with numbers that refuse to look friendly. Alex runs a hand through hair and exhales as if releasing a small storm. "I work so hard and still there's never enough," he says to the night. The guide, calm as an old oak, sits across with a warm mug and asks a question that feels like a small mirror: when did you first decide money isn't for you? For a long beat the clock is the loudest voice. Then memories come: an offhand comment from a parent, a childhood promise to never be that rich person, the day a windfall felt guilty instead of joyful. Each memory is a thread in a quiet script that has been stitching choices without permission. They walk outside, the neighborhood breathes in the cool air. You don't see opportunities you believe you don't deserve, the guide explains, pointing to a woman 2 houses down starting a side business from her porch. Beliefs are filters. They don't only say no to money, they say no to the you that would accept it. Alex hears it like a new instrument tuning in his chest. He remembers saying no to a promotion because it would mean longer hours, changed friendships, being noticed. He thought he was protecting himself, he was protecting a belief. The guide asks him to say the belief aloud, money disappears, Alex whispers, and then to feel where it lives in his body. He pauses, surprised at the tightness in his throat, the clench in his jaw. Feel it until it stops surprising you, the guide advises. Awareness is not blame. It's the first brave choice. In the darkened car afterward, Alex practices choosing differently, a small imagined scene of accepting a client without immediately thinking of loss, picturing joy instead of fear when a check arrives. The image is fragile, but it changes the weight on his chest. A neighbor's laugh floats across the yard like proof that life keeps moving. Alex returns inside with a notebook and a line of questions the guide taught him. Where did this belief begin? Who reinforced it? What would be different if it were untrue? He writes slowly, each answer loosening his seam. The path forward is not sudden wealth but a sequence of small, brave choices that align feeling with possibility. Which financial belief might be limiting your life today? If this touched you, stay with us. Next, we practice a concrete shift that turns awareness into action. The morning light finds him at the small kitchen table again, bills stacked like a quiet accusation. He runs a thumb along the envelopes and remembers the guide's voice, calm and certain. What you expect shapes what you notice. He breathes, and instead of dialing his reflexive excuse, I don't deserve more, he speaks a different sentence aloud, almost as if testing the sound, I can manage money with calm. The words feel foreign. An old inner voice snaps back, thin and sardonic, who are you kidding? He smiles, not with triumph but with curiosity, and answers it like a practiced friend, let's try curiosity today. Outside, the neighborhood stirs, neighbors watering plants, the mail carrier laughing with a child. Small scenes he used to ignore begin to look like evidence. He notices the man across the street installing solar panels and thinks, opportunity. He used to filter those moments through self-doubt, now he simply writes the observation on a napkin and later researches prices. That simple act, observation without immediate judgment, becomes his first experiment. At work, an offer arrives. A short freelance project that pays better than he expected. Old script him imagines sabotage, they'll rescind it, but the new practice is different. He breathes, feels the old fear, and still responds with gratitude. He accepts. The project proceeds smoothly, and the payment lands. It's small, but the feeling that something had shifted is palpable, not magic, but a gentle alignment between expectation and result. Friends notice. A sister teases, you're getting soft on yourself. He laughs, and for the first time says, maybe I'm choosing differently. That sentence triggers gentle resistance, old attachments to identity like, I've always been the one who struggles. The guide's presence is a memory now, a voice he can summon. Change is a series of tiny agreements with a new story. He begins keeping a ledger, not just of numbers, but of moments when he chose a different belief, cataloging feelings, choices, and outcomes. By evening, standing by the window with a cup of tea, he realizes the autopilot is quieter. Choice has become available like a door left ajar. The next step is to walk through it deliberately, test deeper beliefs and watch what rearranges. If one quiet change can open this door, what new evidence might appear when he intentionally shifts a deeper expectation? If this struck a chord, tap like and tell me below, what belief about money are you ready to test next? Stay with me, the turning point waits. The kitchen lights are soft, a storm mutters outside, but inside you sit at the table with a cup gone cold and a notebook with margins full of crossed out hopes. The guide, not a stranger now, but a voice you've learned to trust, leans forward with the patience of someone who's watched this pattern before. Say the belief aloud, she says. Your voice cracks on the first syllable, money doesn't stick with me. It hangs in the air like a confession. The guide nods. Now tell me what you'd rather believe. You try on new words like a coat that looks a little strange at first. I attract steady, respectful income. It feels unfamiliar, almost fraudulent. But you keep repeating it, not as a magic incantation, but as an experiment. You feel different, not instantly wealthier, but lighter. That lightness translates into attention. Where before you skimmed past a small freelance gig ad, you now open it fully. Where before you avoided a call from an old client, you answer with curiosity instead of restraint. A scene slides into view, you at your laptop, rain tapping rhythmically on the window, negotiating terms with a calmness you didn't have last quarter. You surprise yourself by asking for a fair rate. The client's reply comes warm and quick, they say yes. The money is small but clean, a seed. Emotion follows the fact, relief, then a whisper of pride. The old script tries to reassert itself, this won't last, but the guide teaches you to breathe through it, to notice the fear without obeying it. You begin to catalog these quiet wins, a return deposit, a saved $50, a boundary set with a friend who kept expecting favors. Each small proof rewrites the internal ledger. Choices expand. You no longer accept the first job that undercuts your worth because the internal rulebook has a new margin. I deserve alignment and respect. The world doesn't change overnight. Opportunities still require courage. But now, when fear rises, you have a different map. If this moment landed for you, if a sentence made you pause, tap like to let us know it resonated. Tell me below, what financial belief might be limiting your life today? Subscribe if you want to keep walking this path. The next step shows how those small shifts compound into unmistakable change. The morning light slips through the blinds, painting the kitchen table in stripes of gold. He sits there, a stack of envelopes like small mountains, coffee cooling beside his hands. The guide, calm and steady, pours another cup and slides it across without hurry. Where does this story start for you? She asks, not looking for blame but for the quiet place the story took root. He exhales, surprised to find the answer a memory, a childhood belief whispered during hard times: money disappears, it's not for people like us. They trace the scene together, not to shame but to locate the script. You can almost hear the old lines fall away as he repeats them aloud, and the guide counters with a different phrase: what if it's a habit, not destiny? Her voice is small but firm, the kind that makes room for courage. He tries it: I can learn the rules. I can keep what I create. The words sound foreign and then, slowly, like a seed taking down roots. What follows is quiet and cinematic, small acts that carry the weight of change. He cashes out a credit card he had avoided, arranges a call with a financial advisor, says yes to a freelance offer he would have dismissed. Each choice is a rehearsal for a new expectation. The law of attraction, the guide reminds him, doesn't care about your wish list, it amplifies what your heart already expects. So the work becomes inner. Expect abundance, not because it's easy, but because you have rewired your response to fear. There's a moment of tension when an old friend teases him for becoming careful. He smiles, soft and steady. I'm learning to treat money like a tool, not like a judge. Relief floods his face. The scene dissolves into a montage: family dinners with less worry, a savings balance he watches like a friend, opportunities he notices because his mind no longer filters them out. This isn't magic. It's honest, daily practice, awareness replacing autopilot. If this landed with you, tap the like. Tell me in the comments, what financial belief might be quietly limiting your life today? If you want the next step, simple daily rituals to hold this new expectation, subscribe and join the next chapter.